let me just remind all of you, if this is your first time, I'm Kevin Cruz. I'm the founder of LeadX. Welcome. We do these monthly community of practice sessions for all of our friends who are focused on leadership development, because we know there's other groups out there for chief learning officers and CHROs, but we didn't see anything out there in the pandemic to really let us connect, bond, share, network as leadership development professionals. And it's been a delight to see this spread over the years. It's an invitation-only meeting, so other than LeadX, we don't have coaches, consultants, vendors, and LeadX doesn't do any real selling. It's not about a user meeting, and there are no demos. I'm going to go ahead and walk us through the agenda for the day, and I'm going to mute this wonderful music. You know, I've got to be my monthly DJ. Why did I pick Intro by the XX? You know, kind of interesting mood, right? So this was my believe it or not, this was my Spotify Wrapped #1 song of the year. If you've got your fingers warmed up and listen to Spotify, I'm curious, what were some of your top songs or albums in Spotify? And this song, I had a health coach who encouraged me to do a morning visualization, and she said this was her favorite visualization music. So I had like a 30-day sprint of listening to it on repeat every morning. That's why it ended up as my top song. It's pretty cool. Today, I almost canceled this meeting a couple weeks ago because it's end of the year. LeadX, we've all been slammed 7 days a week, working around the clock. It was a lot, and I said, Evan, I don't know if we can do it. I can't be my best self. Everyone's going to be checked out for the holidays anyway. I think maybe we need to cancel it. And he said, no, Kevin, don't be a wimp. We're going to bring everyone together to make sure everyone has a great holiday end of the year. And I'm so glad Evan talked me into it because I'm excited. Our two guests are people who I love and respect, and wherever my IQ level is, they're like double my IQ level. So we're going to be talking to David about the sales leader they need, someone I really respect when it comes to sales leadership. I've used him to improve our go-to-market strategies here at LeadX. And then a great friend, former client, who's going to talk about peer coaching. And many of you will know Claire from when she was on your side of the fence, coming to some of these meetings early on. We will do a speed networking breakout. Remember, when it comes to social capital, social networking, we need to dig our well before we're thirsty. And so this is a great time to say hello to a couple of new friends and expand our LinkedIn connections. And then we're bringing back that experimental segment, the top 5 plays of the month, which is just my excuse for sharing 5 cool things I saw that you might find interesting. And so we are going to get into the part of the program. But first, I want to remind everyone, you know, we like to give away free things, and we're still emphasizing our new EQ program. For those of you who are repeats, you know that LeadX EQ, it's the only EQ program that Travis Bradbury is now recommending. We've got the only program that's doing 12 weeks of executive coaching after the workshop. It's the only program that lets you do unlimited retests for free. It's the only program that now aligns with Travis's latest work. And so, one more time, we are offering for you and any of your L&D colleagues free LeadX EQ Habits Workshop. So we've done, Evan, come off mute here. How many of these have we offered so far? 2 or 3?
So we've done 3, and this will be our 4th.
So if you attended, then let everybody know how awesome it was in the chat. In fact, Sheila, I didn't even have to prompt Sheila. She's in there. Yes, do what Sheila says. Sign up if you haven't participated. It's the full program. You're going to get the full participant experience, all the materials, the 12 weeks of executive coaching. Everything is completely free. It's virtual, 2 hours a day over 3 days. If you can't make it, but you have an L&D colleague who can, send them our way. This is just something we want to spread the word. And in the age of AI, where every device on your desk has super genius, you're going to win through your EQ. It's not going to be your IQ. And so we want to lean into that. And then what's better than that? It is time for the LEADIKA annual leadership development benchmark survey. And it's pay to play. If you want to get all that good data, if you want to take this data to go get more budget, more headcount, more programs, more support for your programs, well, you got to fill out the survey to get the report. It's the world's most detailed benchmark specifically around leadership development. You're seeing the 2024 version there. Leadership development must prove its value in 2024, which turned out to be the case. Some of you proved it better than others. And it's going to be interesting to see what themes emerge. Evan, I see there's a survey link on the screen, and you just dropped it in the chat. So feel free to click that now and then hide that browser so you can fully enjoy this meeting and come back and complete that survey a little bit later. There's, of course, a QR code you can snap on your screen or take a picture of it and then snap that later. Evan, did I miss anything?
No, that's everything. Yeah, I dropped the link in the chat, so we should be good to go. I was messaging with Dwayne. I sent him the link. I don't know what's going on.
The Dwayne Bess is tardy today. I bet he'll join us. He'll join us. He won't leave us hanging. All right, let's get into the heart of the program. This is part of why I'm just so excited that we didn't cancel and that we're here today. Our guest author this month, he was an award-winning research scientist before going to the dark side of sales, spending the next 20 years leading top-performing sales teams at high-growth tech companies, including Salesforce, where he was the vice president of commercial sales and creator of the Sales Leadership Academy. I mean, what kind of credential is better than that? Today, he's the founder of Cerebral Selling. He helps organizations drive revenue through selling skills and sales leadership skills. His writings all over Harvard Business Review, Forbes Entrepreneur, author of 2 best-selling books, Sell the Way You Buy, and the brand new The Sales Leader They Need. Please welcome David Priemer. David, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, good to see you all. Great to be. It always sounds better when someone else reads it. Like I'm here at home. My kids are making fun of me. They're turning into memes, and then you come up. This is like an emotional, uplifting moment here with you. So thank you.
I'm glad I brought it today. It's all authentic and real. And I want to remind everyone on this call that because you are part of this community, you're getting a free copy of David's book. So feel free to take notes, but more importantly, be present. Ask questions, engage, because you're going to get this book in the weeks ahead. And Dave, let me just start with an easy one. So the subtitle is 5 Critical Skills to Unlock Your Team's Potential. The Sales Leader They Need, 5 Critical Skills to Unlock Your Team's Potential. So just walk us through them, high level. What are the 5 skills?
Yeah, so the 5 skills are, number 1, promoting transparency. So kind of giving the why to go with the what. Number 2 is protecting and advocating. So like showing our teams that we have our back and kind of creating that circle of safety for them. Driving accountability, a huge area for leaders. And by the way, these are all kind of cumulative a little bit. Driving accountability. So ensuring people do what they said they were going to do. Number 4 is coaching your team. Super important and arguably, I mean, not arguably, the biggest part of our motion is often just coaching our team, that interaction that we have. And then lastly, I say getting and giving feedback in that order. So those are the 5 skills.
Getting and giving in that order. We'll perhaps come back to that. Yes. I want to hit you. I warned you I was going to go off script really early. Normally, I go off script towards the end of the chat in case the person gets mad at me. I got a good interview out of them anyway, right? No, so this isn't any kind of gotcha, but like I'm fascinated by coaching, and in our benchmarks for several years, coaching's the top of the list for managers to get better at, right? So we all are in agreement. Where I get confused, David, is around sales coaching, because what we see out there in a lot of industries, but especially life sciences, which you know very well, is multiple models in use. So let's say I'm a pharmaceutical sales manager and you're a pharmaceutical sales rep. Well, the manager, maybe, our standard is Blanchard's SL2. So it's like, hey, individualize your approach to coaching, Kevin, with SL2. But also we do grow coaching. So now you've got SL2, but don't forget your GROW. But when it comes to sales coaching, sometimes you need to be a little more directive. So let's use Kim Scott's Radical Candor with a little dash of SBI, right? So now I've got 4 models. we go out on a sales call. I'm watching, and hey, you chat up the doc really nice, good feature benefits, and we walk out. And now I'm thinking, David didn't even ask for the business. He didn't even close. He missed a step. I know it. It's black and white to me. Am I supposed to sit back and be like, okay, but he's a D3 on SL2, so I got to go into an S3, and then we're going to focus on the R and grow. But let me get my SBI model. Like, it's too many models. Don't I just say to David, yo, good rapport, good feature benefit, but why didn't you close? Like, don't I just tell you? Don't I just go there? What are you thinking?
It's funny. So so the way I ended up working at Salesforce was I had done 4 startups. Salesforce acquired my 3rd startup, and we were a feedback, coaching, and recognition platform. And one of the things that a lot of organizations like to do is goal setting. I'm going to mount once your point here in a second. A lot of organizations like to do goal setting. And so they'll say, okay, for the year, Kevin, you're going to have these 5 goals. And this is going to be 20% of your goal. This is going to be 15% of your goal. This is going to be 35% of your goal. And the problem is human beings can't operate on the minutia of 5% this, 10% that. So when I think about all these models are, are great if you can follow them. At the end of the day, though, it still comes down to like a conversation between 2 people, just like selling. Selling has models too, but at the end of the day, the other person that you're speaking to doesn't give a crap about whatever model you're using. They just want, the output. So I think about that in this case as well. And, in your particular situation, it's funny, I was actually in that exact, situation many times. And often what I would do when I would come out of that meeting, and I would say to the rep, like, how'd you think it went? Like, rather than like, here's where I think you need to get better. Certainly there is a time and a place for that directive kind of coaching. But, you talk a lot about, your whole thing is emotional intelligence. It's like, I'm trying to figure out, can this person figure out, where they went wrong? And I love like the Kim Scott, story that she tells with Sheryl Sandberg was an instance where they got out of the meeting and she didn't realize that she said a million times. And
It's a great story.
And so it's a good example where Sheryl Sandberg's trying to coach Kim Scott and says, like, how'd you think it went? And she's seeing that she's not getting it. So eventually she has to be directive and tell her. But I like coming out and saying, like, how do you think it went? Maybe they have they're like, oh my gosh, David, I think it was good, but I realize now I didn't, I didn't ask for the business, or I felt I had in the back of my head I should ask for it, but then I felt awkward doing it, right? So that's worth a lot more than, hey, Kevin, you messed up, buddy. You need to do A, B, and C next time. So I like.
So fundamentally, take a ask before tell approach and make it a conversation, right?
Yeah.
Now, so you've got a whole one of the 5 pieces about coaching. So tell us, how rigid is your coaching advice, your coaching model in the book?
So it's interesting. So specifically around sales, whenever you get into a coaching conversation with a person, the big question is, what am I going to coach you on? Like, there's all these kind of models and so on, but I need to figure out where's the end game here. What are the things, what are the skills we're going to help you build? And so when I think a lot about the coaching model, it's less about, well, what do I say in that meeting? And, that's part of it. But it's like, what are we going to pick? Like, how do we know what we need to coach you on? And in the book, I kind of cover two things. Number one is like the top-down directive diagnostic model, meaning, like, imagine in the medical practice, I'm going to put you through the MRI machine and I'm going to see what's broken. And I'm going to say, hey, Kevin, according to the machine, like, this is a problem. We need to work on this, right? And I talk about a diagnostic way of doing that specifically in sales, because the truth is, if you read the sales leader they need and you talk about these skills are pretty universal. Like, you don't have to be in sales to coach and advocate and driving accountability. But the examples that we give when it comes to, for example, diagnosing issues is very sales specific. So when we go from a top-down perspective, I often take this like CRM almost approach where you have like activity, calls, emails, leads to pipeline, which leads to opportunities, which leads to closed business, which leads to new renewals and growth. And if I put you through that machine and I can analyze where you might be going wrong, or as a senior leader, I can analyze that on a regional basis or team basis, then I can kind of figure out, to a certain level of granularity, where we need to work with you on. But the second piece is like the bottom up. And I'll use a simple example. One of the things I try to weave into my, sales and leadership practices, like, we're all just humans, and there's so many experiences that we have in life that inform our approach to selling and leadership. And I was diagnosed with cancer a number of years ago. And it was interesting because I didn't tell people about it, like my family, close friends, and so on. But I didn't want to just come out and just announce it to my team and so on. I didn't want people asking me, "Oh, are you okay?" and all this kind of stuff. So I just kind of kept it to myself. But then there were certain people that I opened up to very quickly about it. But I say this in the context of coaching, is that when I show up to work and I'm distracted because I have obviously a lot on my mind, and then I have doctor's appointments and things that I have to do, where does that show up on the dashboard? Like it might show up in terms of lack of activity, it might show up in a poor conversion rate or whatever it is. But as a leader, you're never going to figure out that I'm missing the mark because I've been diagnosed with a disease. And so I use it just as an example of sometimes we need to work bottom up. We need people to tell us what's going on. And I liken that very much to sales discovery, because sometimes people are going through things that they don't want to tell us. Just the same way when you go into a sales interaction and you ask a customer, "What's your budget?" You ever walk into a car dealership and someone says, like, "What's your budget?" All these things go off in your head. Like, well, why are they asking? Are they going to try to lowball me? It's like in sales, if I say, Kevin, who's your boss? It's like, you don't want to tell me that. I'm the enemy. And so, so it's the same thing when it comes to coaching. There's the top down that gets me a certain level of granularity and might help me in a lot of instances. And then there's the bottom up. It's like, how do I get people to tell me what might be going on when I can't see what the root cause might be?
Now, David, I'm glad you went there, because I mean there's so many great takeaways from the book, but I took away something like really powerful that is a small thing. And I'm going to tee it up, but you might not even know what I'm talking about, which I always hate when I get interviewed. Someone will say, "Oh, on page 42, you talk about this. What did you mean?" I'm like, I don't even remember writing that. Like, I have no recall of my own books. But you tell a story around this getting to what is going on with the person, checking in with the person when you're trying to find out how they are. You tell a little story about a Jenny Brennan who had a particular way to get people to kind of really reveal what's going on. Do you recall that?
I do. Yes.
Please
Yeah.
share.
It reminded me, it's almost like you're interviewing William Shatner and you're like, in episode 132 of Star Trek, when you were on the alien planet, what was the thing you were holding in your hand? So
God
yes.
forbid, because Shatner would get it wrong and the fans would just attack.
Well, it reminds me of that old SNL sketch with Shatner, and he starts making fun of the Trekkies, like, "Get a life, people! Like, it doesn't matter what I was holding." Anyways,
move out of your mom's basement.
That's right. That's exactly it. So Jenny Brennan. So here's the thesis of when you're coaching someone and you're trying to figure out how they're doing, right? And you say, like, "So hey, Kevin, like, how you doing?" And it's like when we ask people how they're doing, most people say, "Oh, I'm fine." Like it's almost like when you're in the supermarket checkout and the cashier's like, "How you doing today?" And you're like, "I'm fine." I know you don't care, right? And so we become almost desensitized to these kinds of questions. And so I talk about a couple different models of kind of getting to the root of that, because oftentimes people are not fine. There's a problem or there's something on their mind, and they just don't feel that we care enough to want to know what that thing is. And so Jenny is a sales leader over in the UK, and she talked to me about this tactic she used with her team, which is what she refers to as the "I'm okay but" exercise, which is like saying, and sometimes she does this in private and one-on-ones, and sometimes she does it like around the table, in her team meetings. And basically, it's imagine we did it in a team meeting, and we kind of go around and we say, "Okay, hey everyone, I know, thank goodness we're generally okay. We have jobs. We're generally healthy. We don't have catastrophes, hopefully, in our lives. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing that you're thinking about. So I want you to go around the room and everyone can say like, hey, look, I'm okay, but, and then raise a concern. It's basically you're giving permission to people to be honest and open up. So that's the Jenny Brennan tactic.
Yeah, and I think it's so powerful one-on-one, especially with someone who you have, high trust, high care, high relationship. But again, in the workplace especially, we're busy, we go into default mode. I'm really good about my weekly one-on-ones, my O3s, but it is true. I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" And people know I'm a type A driver introvert, and they're gonna be like, "Good." Okay, good. Tell us about your to-do list, right? It's just too easy to get away from that. and inviting people like, hey, finish the sentence, I'm good, but like, what would you say? Something's going to come out of the other end of that. Something's going to come out the other end of that. And to use it in a team or a meeting, I mean, then increases that awareness for everyone and gives the opportunity for, authenticity, trust, support, right? I mean, it's great stuff.
100%. And I'll tell you, like, one of the thesis. So the way when people say, tell me about the sales leader they need, one of the things that I start off by saying is I say, I want you to think about the best leader you ever had. And people can generally pick this person out relatively quickly. And then I ask them, I say, what was it about this person that made them the best you ever had? And I do this, when I do, live training sessions, and I'll go to the whiteboard and I'll write down whatever anyone in the room says. And so I'm cheating because I've done this hundreds of times, so I know what people say. And this is what I talk about in the book. And I say, here's the list. But if I look at what's on that list, they pushed me, they believed in me, they were honest, they were transparent, they could, like, all those things fall into two categories. Number one, they cared about me. Number two, they helped me grow. That's it. And then when I ask people, I say, well, what was the kind of person, the kind of worker that you showed up as for this best sales leader or the best leader you ever had? They're like, oh my gosh, I would run through a brick wall for Kevin. Right?
Yeah.
And so I tell people, like, you already know what you need to do if you want to be the best. But all these things back to, like, so why is caring so important? If you believe that I care about you, like the Sheryl Sandberg, Kim Scott, then it allows me, that's the whole thesis, in fact, of radical candor. Like, if you care about someone and you're willing to challenge them directly, that's radical candor. If you don't care about them and you challenge them directly, now you're just being, I think she calls it obnoxious or ruinous empathy or obnoxious aggression.
Yeah,
So that caring is such a fundamental part of our, leadership motion for all the things, and especially for coaching and getting people to open up.
Yeah, and you open with that. I think is the first chapter where it comes down to that, and it is such a great reminder. And Kim's got that nice model. Doug Conant, former CEO of Campbell's Soup, he talks about being, tender, tough-minded on standards, but tender-hearted on people, which always sat well with me. And this is probably a decade ago, I was invited to go do some speaking and work with the United States Marine Corps out in California. And I'd never served in the military, and it was an honor, but it was very intimidating. And like, half the guys that were going to be there were just coming back from Iraq. The other half were leaving like 2 weeks later. Like, what am I? Kevin Cruz going to walk in and tell these guys about leadership? Like, this is ridiculous. And I was very nervous about it. I got some guidance from some friends who are Marines, and I followed them around and saw, and everything was blowing my mind. It was about care and competence, really. It was, they were hugging each other. They were talking about how much they loved each other. Their families were involved in all these events. And the general at the end, I was just saying, hey, I feel bad. Like, I was just so naive. I've never been, never served. Like, this is exactly the same, but better. Like, you don't see it in the workplace as much, the care part. It was so totally on display, these hardcore Marines, just displaying that. And all of us, I think, remembering, that, like, do I love leadership models? Sure. Do I like fancy leadership definitions? Sure. But you can really boil it down to that, and the caring is the first most important piece, right?
100%.
David, I like all of our new friends here who come in and chat with our family to know a little bit about you as a person. And we kind of jumped over that. Tell us where's home for you right now?
Yeah, I always launch into these conversations assuming that I'm old friends with everyone, and I also gloss over that. So I am Canadian. I'm based in Toronto. You can tell by my accent. I say process and project and about. If you can, I still don't get the about. But yes, born and raised, moved around, lived in a lot of places, traveled a lot for my work being a sales leader, but still call Toronto home. I am turning 50 this year. I have 3 daughters, 19, 16, and 12. And my wife's a teacher. I don't know what else to tell you. I got into sales by accident, just like everyone else. Started my career as a research scientist. I was doing graduate work in engineering at the University of Toronto. building computer models and ended up joining a startup at the turn of the dot-com boom. I fell in love with sales. We grew this company. There was 20 of us at the time. We grew to a $100 million business and 700 people. We IPO'd, we got acquired. That was my first startup. Like I said, I had done 4 of them. My third one was acquired by Salesforce. But when I was at Salesforce, one of the things I realized is that, people love to buy stuff and they hate talking to salespeople. I don't like talking to salespeople either. You want to, I can be in a room of 1,000 salespeople. I say, hands up, who likes talking to salespeople? Like no one puts up their hand. And I realized, especially when I was at Salesforce, I used to run small business sales for the Eastern US at Salesforce, that a lot of the tactics that my team was going out and using, while not unethical and not categorically ineffective, were just things that wouldn't work on me. People are trying to sell me stuff all the time, and I wasn't having any of it. And so one of the things that Salesforce asked was, they said they like when entrepreneurs come in from the outside. They said, would you like to write? I said, sure. So I started to write for the Salesforce blog, and the content ended up getting picked up by like Forbes and Entrepreneur Magazine. So I'm like, this is great. So I kept doing it. And then several years ago, I realized that the number one thing I love to do in the world is learn. I'm like a knowledge junkie. But I also love, as a former research scientist, you think about like, well, what do research scientists do? We try to take complex things that we know a lot about in our little world, and we try to share them in a very digestible way with, everyone else. And so I realized like that's what I was doing in the sales and leadership world. So I decided that this should be my job. And I created my practice. I work with, companies essentially to enable them on some of these science and empathy-based sales and sales leadership tactics. Wrote a couple books, and here we are.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And even though you aren't at Salesforce any longer, like I actually, I'm not being funny. I thought of you yesterday because I got my Salesforce annual renewal notice, and they upped it, 12% when inflation's 2.7%, and it made me think about, now this is an aspirin, not a vitamin, right? When you can raise rates year after year at 3 times the rate of inflation or higher, and I signed it, I'm going to renew it, even though I don't like it. I don't like the software, found it clunky. We don't use it that much, but I signed it. As opposed to things like leadership development, David, where all of us in this boat, where to the CEOs and most people, we're a vitamin instead of an aspirin. So we have to kind of really push and prove our worth. David, answer that question I floated to the whole group. How are you going to spend the end of the year? Doing anything special?
Yeah, well, it's funny. So my wife, as I said, is a teacher, so she can't just take off whenever she wants, although she has her summers off. My daughter, who's a second year, she's actually an engineering student at college, so she's on a different schedule than the rest of my kids. And so Christmas time is the only time that we are together as a family, like the 5 of us, for the entire year. And so we are going on a vacation. We're going to do a cruise. We like cruising. We're like cruising people.
Cool.
So we're doing a Caribbean cruise over the holidays. So that's
love it. Well, we're at the bottom of the hour. David, I just want to thank you again. It was nice to reconnect and see your smile here in real time. Everyone's going to get a copy of David's book and connect with him on LinkedIn so you can ask him your questions after you give it a read. David, thank you. Enjoy the rest of the year.
100%. Thank you so much for inviting me, Kevin. And great to connect with you all. For sure, reach out to me on LinkedIn, say hi, and
feel free to hang out and lurk. Otherwise, we'll see you in the new year.
Sounds good. Take care.
Thanks, David. Hey, I see we got the Dwayne Bess in my lower right corner. We gotta get him up the top row, top shelf. Dwayne Bess, how we doing?
There you go. What is up, brother? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. You missed the opening where we've been working so hard. I almost canceled this, and then let's do it. And I'm delighted. Got to see David. We're getting ready to have another great conversation with someone who's dear to me. Good to see you again. What I opened up by asking people how they're going to spend the end of the year. What are you doing with the fam?
We normally host we normally host Thanksgiving and Christmas, so I'll have about a strong 40 people here, for Christmas. So yeah. So we'll do that, and we'll watch movies and watch sports and hang on out. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. I have a little bit of end of the year time off, but if you can believe this, tomorrow I'm leaving for Saudi Arabia. I got to go to Saudi Arabia I'll be back on Wednesday. Wednesday or Thursday.
Really?
So
what state are you over there?
There is a CEO of one of the world's largest companies that wants me to chat with him and his top 100 leaders. So doing end of the year planning, new year planning, and or end of the year wrap up, new year planning. And it's gonna take, you know, a piece of my soul doing this round trip so fast to Saudi Arabia and back. But Dwayne, I stumbled on what I think is going to be like my next 5-year theme, my next book. And
Really?
yeah. It's around this idea of being like a future, what I'm calling a future caster, like leadership for this crazy, crazy time we're in.
Mhm.
And, you know, it encompasses things like agility and innovation and resilience, but being, you know, future vision with these components. The research is, I just did one mini research study. The correlations to performance and engagement are sky high. So
Mm.
yeah, I'm just using this opportunity to kind of, you know, do some new stuff. So I'm excited about it.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And the timeline is, did you say you're going to work on that over the next 5 years?
I think this is like, I'm so excited about this idea that I think it's going to be my next book, and it will be like my theme, you know,
I
like
got
that
it.
I really lean into. Not going to give up anything else, you know, I'm not going
Yeah,
away.
yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah, yeah.
no, I think this is like the thing to lean into. I really do. Like, just it's what the world needs. We need more future vision. We need more future vision. So
I
anyway.
love that. Well, hopefully, as you're building this thing out, you allow the community here to go on that voyage for you and
Oh,
pressure
cool.
test and hear your ideas
Yeah,
as you go. I think that'd be really cool.
I appreciate it. That's a good idea. We'll crowdsource the entire thing.
Yeah, yeah. I look forward to it.
So let's move on to our spotlight case study. And I'm going to advance this slide, but then turn it over. And Evan, if we can spotlight Claire, this would be great. So most of you probably recall Claire from earlier on when she was on your side. She wasn't a special guest, but she was just dropping like knowledge bombs around coaching and peer coaching. Claire and I met when she was at Accenture and one of our big clients. And Claire's going to introduce herself and share some slides in a minute. But Claire is literally the smartest person I know when it comes to actually applying coaching skills and turning leaders into coaches. Because when she is at Accenture and is in charge of it for 750,000 employees around the world, you get a little experience about what works, what doesn't work. And like, I'm just so excited because for all of you, connect with Claire on LinkedIn, and you're going to take away some nuggets. Like, Claire, come on and just start chatting, because like they would have to spend a fortune to get your wisdom, to get your insights on coaching. And here you are offering it up for free. Do you feel that way? Like you should be getting a bigger check out of me right now?
Absolutely not. But it was actually part of my reasoning is really, I mean, it's a synchronicity of conversation, isn't it? Like that was why I left Accenture, because I'm like, I've done things, I've done it all. I don't need to do any more. Job's different after COVID anyway. And isn't it time to kind of give it away for free? So I'm absolutely delighted to give away what wisdom I've gained, and you know, and help people think through really what they can do for themselves.
And you're going to give us a lot of free value in a minute, starting in a minute. And let's make sure we keep the questions going. And feel free. I'm encouraging everyone to ask questions, Claire, that are even beyond the scope of your talk, anything related to leadership development, your experience at Accenture. And while you're giving us all this wisdom for free today, it is important for people to know that your firm is LEADIKA, and you are available for coaching and consulting and leadership development. So they're able to partner with you more officially as well. Claire, on that note, do you want to take over and share slides and drive?
So my background. So is someone going to share the slides, or do I have to actually get up and share that?
I thought you were going to share slides,
okay.
But while you talk about your background, we can certainly find them and share them.
Why don't you do that? Because then maybe I can
Evan's
share
got
screen. I can. You got them up, Evan? Yeah. Accenture is a very large global consulting company, and as part of my time there, I was part of our leadership development and coaching practice. And so do have some ideas about how to, so it was really fascinating actually, following David and talking about sales coaching, because honestly, whenever I was asked about that, that would just make me kind of cringe and just back away and say, I can help people with all sorts of coaching, but I cannot help you when it comes to sales coaching. And I've just kind of realized that maybe I could have, because I think they're very similar. So, so my background is as an ICF certified coach. And so I do come from that definite ask versus tell. And my passion is really about creating coaching cultures in organizations, big or small, because I really believe that everything that David said about how it makes people feel cared for, how it makes people grow, everything that most organizations have in their talent strategies and their practices and what they want to create. I always believed that coaching was the kind of the how. It was like the practical, tactical way to make a lot of talent programs actually happen. So I think it's a really good thing and it's been a real journey. So I guess I started in about 2013 on this journey, and wasn't really, was the first thing I would always be doing was helping kind of level set. Well, when you say coaching, what do you mean? Because here's what I mean when I say coaching, and that has changed remarkably over a decade. And as COVID did many things, it really accelerated that change as well. So I'm coming here to talk about one of the programs. And it's a peer coaching program. Kevin asked me, could you talk about a peer coaching program? So I said, sure, I can do that. So if we just slip on a couple of slides then, Evan, I think if you're doing the slides for me. Okay, so I call it Coach and Be Coached. And that was a very cool name to sort of say, hey, if you sign up for this program, you are going to be coaching someone. And you're going to give coaching, but you're going to receive coaching in return. So Coach and Be Coached. So it's a good little title, and it's an amazingly kind of versatile, light touch, highly scalable kind of peer coaching program that does double duty. So, and I think it does three things actually. So I'm going to add another one onto that. So the first one is this idea of, as a coach, well, you're obviously getting to grow your own coaching skills, and there's a lot of benefit to that. Whether your day job is as I say, leading the sales team, or whether you're part of a team that's working on a project. The second benefit then is, because you're getting coached, you get the benefit of someone caring for you and giving you a structure to have conversations over time where you can work on your own development. And I guess the third one that I would add to this is just the power of network. So the way that many of these programs were organized, you get to meet people that you would never meet normally. And so you got to expand your network. So I'm going to talk about the key things. So everyone gets to be coached and be coached. And it was really about creating a circle of coaching. And you'll notice that we've got, it's not A coaches B and B coaches A. So there's a big kind of X through that. So we never, ever ran a program where we had that. And the reason for that is that when you have a coach, you just want that coach to be your coach. You want it to be all about you, right? And that's the whole thing about that's the amazing thing about the coaching, role, is that it's not about you, it's about the other person and their agenda. And so by removing that kind of reciprocity of it, we decided that everybody could kind of get that experience. And I've got, go on.
No, this again is one of the first. I'm going to keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
No, please do. Yeah.
This is a big takeaway and an easy thing though to facilitate, because I think especially in the L&D side of things, people are used to having study buddies, accountability buddies. So it's here's your pair. Dwayne and I are pairs through this learning journey together, and we'll read the HBR article and debrief it, or we'll work on a project together. So my natural thing, it's we're peer coaches. We'll just coach each other. And you're like, no. You at least need a triad. You can't just make it reciprocal, right?
Yeah, and lessons learned. We weren't very successful with the triad, and I'll talk more about why that is. So you'll see that you need a quad at a minimum.
Okay.
And sometimes we went a bit bigger. And I guess the difference maybe, Kevin, is that I'm talking about a fairly formal coaching program that it definitely had a start. We tried to kind of make it have a finish. And we set people up to say, you're the coach, and when you're the coach, this is how you coach. And we'll talk about a little bit about sometimes it was themed, sometimes it wasn't themed, versus something that was quite informal, kind of peer coaching, which I think really most people think about peer coaching as something quite informal. This was about building skills and kind of creating a coaching culture. So it was a little bit more strategically formal. So if we go on to the next slide, this is kind of just some of the ways. Once we'd got like the coach would be coach kind of nailed down, we realized it was really, really versatile. So I had the privilege at Accenture of working for a very large organization, and we had lots of opportunity to connect with each other. Sort of one global network is one of the values. And so as a community of professional coaches, we knew that there were a lot of other people who were either professional coaches or very interested in coaching or wanted to do that. So we created a community of practice, so similar to the community of practice of leadership development here. Is that we could kind of get up to thousands of people in our communities of practice because we're such a large organization. So the Global Coach Network was one of those. I used to do like demos, once a month. We used to do, coaching seminars once a month. So it was really about helping people understand what coaching is and grow their skills and capabilities. And so we knew there had to be some sort of practice part of that, but it had to be kind of fairly light touch, because for everybody, this was on top of your day job. This was never ever my job to kind of do this. It was always part of, something that we were just doing. We used to call them a +1. So I'll talk more about that one in the next slides, because that's the best way of actually talking about how where this program came from at its start and some of the practical steps. But just so you can kind of see the versatility of it, another program, maybe this was a little bit more of my day job. I was helping a particular practice in Accenture, which was our digital practice, really develop a coaching culture. It was one of those conversations where, when they said, we want you to focus on coaching, we realized we were talking about different things, but they kind of soon saw the power of that ask versus tell. And we had a champion program. So we added the coach and be coached as a follow-up to a 2-day training program, so that for the next 3 months, people, and then the triads did work, people were in triads and they were coaching each other. One would coach someone and the next person would coach the other one. And actually I would listen in, or another faculty would listen in twice, and we would kind of give good performance feedback for them in terms of what, building on what we had done in a more in-depth training. On another scale, this was hilarious kind of program for me. It was just like, I can never believe the numbers that the Philippines used to be able to kind of come up with. But they did this as part of a diversity program. So many people have diversity efforts around women and leadership. And there was a coaching program that we created, which was called Actualize, and it was delivered by certified coaches. And then we kind of thought, this was great content. People wanted it. So we developed it into seminars. And they said, Claire, can you do the seminars? And then can you help us? And we'll do the coaches. And so for this one, they had 150 coaches who were leaders. And then they had 150 people who were being coached. And so that was kind of themed, and they had things that they would follow up from the seminars, or they had activities. So there's a degree of formality, or there's a degree of looseness depending on what your need is. So I'm going to just talk through the Global Coach Network one, because this is where it was born from. So if you were part of this network, maybe you'd get an email, or you get something come up in the feed and was like, hey, we're going to launch one of these rounds of Coach and Be Coached. And so we'd ask them to fill in an online survey. Any survey tool is good. It's really good to have drop-down lists, because that really standardizes the data that's coming in, especially if you've got large groups. Some of our groups went as large as 400, 500 people would sign up for this at a time. And we started off when we said, you've got to give 10 hours of coaching and you've got to receive 10 hours of coaching, because 10 hours of coaching is kind of like the standard in the business. It's like 3 months. We went down at the end to about 5 hours of coaching, because it's a lot of, somebody's time, because it's 5 hours of coaching that you're giving and 5 hours that you're receiving is 10 hours. We would say it would take about 3 months. It never took 3 months. It would always take longer. So, maybe up to about 6 months. And we were really good at the start. So we would say, hey, you have to come to this meeting. We're going to record it. If you can't make it, you're going to learn about the expectations of the program. We're going to give you some basic training and coaching skills and mindset. And we're going to give you some basic job aids. And so we would do all of that in the kickoff call. And then because we were dealing with 500 people, and this is all a +1 for us, we had a few other volunteers, and we would ask for those volunteers on the online survey, by the way. We'd say, hey, do you want to be a coaching coordinator? And, I'll show you the mechanics behind it later on, but you'd get an email from this coaching coordinator and you say, hey, here's your circle. Kevin is coaching Claire, and Claire is coaching Dwayne, and Dwayne is coaching Evan, and Evan is coaching Kevin. And reach out to your coach and set up that first meeting and just get started, and then go at it. And their coaching coordinator was that point of contact. So a coaching coordinator would have about 30 people, 40 people that they would be looking after. So you didn't have one person, me, looking after 500 people, because I would never be able to troubleshoot your issues if you had them. But like 40 people, 30 people to one person, they could do it. And then sometimes we'd have, a debrief session that the passionate people would always come to, and they'd love to kind of talk about it at the end. But we did run surveys, and when we use those surveys, we would get information for how to improve the process for the next one and kind of see the value of it. So that was the participant experience. Yes, Kevin.
Claire, I always go into the details for some reason. So I'm curious with the coordinators. Like I said, you can't support 500 people yourself. So the coordinators really needed to problem solve on their own as much as possible. So what kind of issues were coming up? Like, Dwayne was
the main issue, and maybe go to the second. Maybe I'll just incorporate that into
go ahead,
I'm going to say, Kevin, because there is a very big issue that challenge. It's not an issue, it's a challenge. Okay, so if you're organizing this, I mean, for me, I had to have a couple of volunteers help me, and I did. And once I kind of trained them up in how to do this, and they loved it. I mean, they would say, Claire, I'm so grateful that you give me the opportunity to do this. And I'd be like, I'm so grateful, Justin and Carlos, that you were doing this for me, because, so they loved it. It's a win-win-win, right? So it's good to help to get some people, volunteers, and those are just people who can organize stuff. And for the coaching coordinators, it was ideal if they were certified coaches. Usually people put their hand up because they were passionate about coaching. So that works really well. So one of the key messages here is we're all doing this out of love of the profession and passion for coaching. And so keep that alive and keep that core to your program. Design that sign up form or survey. We would ask for names and locations and levels, and that would help us with the matching. But you can do matching in different ways. You got to market that round, set up a deadline for registration. You stick so tightly to that deadline, because the problem with matching is if people come in after you've matched, it's kind of like it's hard to fit them in and it gets messy. So you kind of get together what you need. So maybe you need some content for your kickoff call. You need some coaching aids, like how do you have that first coaching conversation? How do you have that end coaching conversation? That's kind of about and some coaching skills and stuff like that. That's kind of what you need if you're doing like a free coaching. So free coaching means that there's no theme, there's nothing that you're following. You're just doing like, what are we going to talk about today? What's top of your mind for you? How it evolved is we began to kind of put this as a themed coaching. So for example, we use the Gallup strengths in Accenture. So we did a whole round that was devoted to people exploring their strengths and how to leverage them and use them. And for then you kind of have a bit more activities and a bit more guidance. Okay, it's coaching conversation number 1, do this, number 2, do this, and 3. So we would prep that. So that's why it was great to have those volunteers. We did it on our leadership model. We did it around energy. We did it around being an inclusive leader. Like we kind of use the kind of the talent strategy theme of, you know, that kind of quarter or that kind of half year, and often kind of matched it with a coach and be coached. So I just did it all on Excel. So you would just get a download of Excel. You'd go 500 names. You'd know what level they were at, and you would know, you know, what country. And we asked for language as well. And what, you know, pretty much everybody had to kind of speak English in Accenture. So, but we did say, could you not be coached in English? And so we would kind of tease that out. And then we would do the matching. So a really easy way to match was to kind of put together a group of about 4 or 5 people, and just by location and level. So in the end, that's the easiest way to do this. It kind of, for us, it avoided the time hours. Occasionally we would do random cross world ones, and they were delightful. People love them. So don't feel limited to that, but you know, you've got to have some strategy or criteria. Why would we not do 3? So the problem with the triad, if it's Kevin, Claire, and Dwayne, and then Kevin realizes that he's off to Saudi Arabia and he signed up for this thing, and you know what, maybe he wants to do it in his spirit, but you know, his time, you know, and he comes to me and he says, Claire, I'm going to have to drop, you know, or he comes to Evan as the coordinator, says, I'm going to have to drop. Then Dwayne and I are left like in this, which is the one thing we wanted to avoid, right? So dropping out is the main thing of what the coaching coordinators do. So we put a lot of emphasis on, like, come to the meeting, you know, contact your coachees, ask for help if this doesn't get set up. So it's a big load of work at the beginning. And I would get the coaching coordinators and I would sort of say, okay, have you sent out all of your emails? Yes, right. Have you followed up with each one of the groups to see if they've started up, you know? So, and you're not going to do that for 50 groups, or, you know, but if you've got like 5 groups, you know, follow up with the groups and ask them, are you started? Have you got started? What, you know, how can I help you get started? The biggest thing is get started.
Yeah. Can I ask about that attrition? So, which is what I would expect is the main issue is, you know, life gets busy or people didn't quite realize what they signed up for. So I see it makes sense from planning for attrition so the circle can still happen. Do you have a sense of, so the program is supposed to be 3 months, maybe it drags out 4, 5, 6 months. Like, is there a curve where it's like, oh, you know what, you're going to lose 10% of the people in the first month because they didn't quite realize what it was about, but then they stick? Or is it, oh no, like every month people get burned out on it and it's like drops off where month 6, you've lost half your people? Like, how severe is it?
Yeah, well, we had no curve because it's almost impossible to get that data from people who've like dropped out, right? So,
yeah.
So if you've got a smaller program, so the coaching culture program where I had champions, 100% completion rate.
That's great.
It was a white glove program, right? You know, we spent 2 days in the classroom together. They all like loved each other. The amazing thing about doing coaching training is people come out that and say it's the best training I've ever done in my life. Right. You know, they're very motivated. Yeah. With the Philippines one, for example, they're fantastic at like operationalizing things. So, you know, they had probably very little dropout and would be able to answer that. For us, with the community, this was a light touch program. We are, and I think that's the second thing is like, trust what the universe is giving you and trust in the process and just believe in people and set it up with those expectations. So, you know, we weren't sort of saying we can guarantee that you're going to have this really successful coaching relationship. We were sort of saying, we're giving you this opportunity for you to have that. We're saying, come to us if you need help. And I mean, I've literally done this with thousands of people. the only once does somebody come to me with a concern about their coach. In thousands of people.
Yeah, it's great.
Now, people would come say, Kevin's dropped out. What are we going to do? You know, and then if Kevin dropped out, there was another group where someone else dropped out, and so sometimes we would just kind of like Frankenstein kind of like groups together, or if there was 5 people in the group, we could kind of quickly get it down to 4 if it was at the beginning. But we had to just kind of be very light touch.
That's great. Thanks.
So and then in the next slide, maybe quickly, and I can see there's some really interesting questions, so I want to get to those as well. We'd run the kickoff session, get the coaching coordinators out. Big issue is failure to launch. And then we let it happen, trusted the process, and collected some data. And so maybe the last one, I think, is my lessons learned. So, okay, so passion. Less is more. We were never asking for 10. Somebody asked about how did promote development and coaching with billable employees. Is it, so this one in the coaching network was an opt-in program. That's a challenge in any organization, whether you're billable or not. For us, our culture is like a culture of +1. So you knew you had your day job, and then you knew you had a whole load of other stuff that you would do as well. So so it was opt-in. They did not need to be subject matter experts on any of the topics. So, and they didn't have to be an expert coach either. So I think that was one of the things that we would make it very, very clear that it was not professional coaching that you are getting here, and that nobody got to choose their coach, because people would say, well, I'd like a coach that's from, the UK and, is 2 levels above me, and I would like them, to coach me on this. And we say, great, well, when you meet your coach that the universe will deliver to you, tell them what you want to, how you want to go and develop in that topic. So, and even if we were doing themed ones, we would give them some information. But the idea is that you kind of create this kind of like, we're all in this together, we're all growing and develop together. Maybe luck of the draw, you're going to be matched with someone who's got some coach training or is even a certified coach. But for the vast majority of people, they didn't. But we did our best to kind of teach them the fundamentals of like coaching skills and questioning and listening and open and curious. And I guess the last learning for me, which is why I love this program so much, is that you really just something magical happens. So the joy of this program and the joy it brought to so many people, like for relatively little effort, you're providing care and growth for people who are investing their time. And it had a huge impact for a lot of people. It doesn't work for every parent, I can tell you that. But for the most part, this is a magical program. And did we provide any additional guidance to the past to help them through the development of coaching skills? We gave them a kickoff call and a very thorough kind of coaching skills information pack that was part of that, but most of them did not have detailed coaching skills training, and that wasn't like a barrier to entry. So if you'd never coached before, you could be part of this program. We did send out a survey at the end. To be honest, I can't remember the questions that we used to ask. I think we asked them how far they'd progressed. We asked them, I don't know if we asked them about the effectiveness of their coach per se, but we did ask them, we used the Fitzpatrick model and sort of said, did you do it? Did you like it? Did it, did you change any behaviors, or did it help you, achieve some goals? And then, what was the value of that? So we would, and it would always score like high.
Blair, I want to jump in because, first of all, congratulations. I mean, you were in a large organization, but I'm all about like leadership and change at scale, right? And so this is just phenomenal, and it has to feel great that you created something in the universe that had this impact. And having said that, what surprises me is the popularity of the program, because so I'm wondering about how you convinced people to do this coaching stuff? Because what I'm hearing, this is anecdotally, I respect what BetterUp has done to democratize coaching, but there's a whole lot of customers out there that said, we bought 300 seats so we could democratize coaching at our company, and no one's using the seats. We're like, hey, here's a benefit for you. You get a BetterUp coach. And I was like, I don't want to coach. You know, we're seeing it. You know, we offer live coaching through the LeadX platform, and it is underutilized. Like, hey, everybody, you could talk to a coach every single day, Monday through Friday, and a lot of people don't do it. And I think it's because people don't know what coaching is, and they don't understand the value, or they have a misunderstanding where they think the coach will answer their question. Like, I'm here to tell me what to say to my boss. And when you say that's not how this works, they're like, oh, well, it's too hard to be coached in communications. So how did you get so many people to say, yeah, I see the value of this extra 10 hours?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was sort of doing apples to oranges, but I think that's okay, like, because I think that, you know, buying coaching seats is a slightly different kind of situation. I think some people signed up for this and they had absolutely no idea what they were signing up. Like, what do you mean I have to like now coach someone or something like that? It's amazing how little people actually pay attention. And so like you really have to reinforce the basics of the communication, like, you know, again and again and again. And that's why maybe a couple of people would drop out. But people had already signed up to our community, so we'd already got like warm leads, I suppose, in the sales thing. So, and it was, I mean, viral is a big word, so I would say it was like a little bit viral within that tiny part of our organization. So maybe we started this when we were 300,000, right? If we've got like 400 or 300 people signing up, we're getting a tiny percentage of our organization, right? So, but you know, people had heard good things about it or had the experience. I mean, what was gratifying was the repeat signups.
Yeah.
So that the repeat customers kind of came back. On the one around more formal, I guess we've experienced that we would offer coaches in, you know, leadership development programs, probably that had a higher uptake, just kind of offering. But I think that one, you know, as a coach, I think, and someone who's been in coaching as well, and sometimes who's offered coaching and says, I don't want coaching, you know. I think that it's a misunderstanding of what coaching is. So coaching is really driven by the coachee and the coachee's need and motivation and, you know, what they want to get out of something. And so sometimes I think if as an organization we're trying to organize coaching for people, if we don't really think about it from those shoes, that's why we can't why we can't fill those seats. And so I think it's sort of like really going back to basics of coaching isn't for us so that we can develop our leaders. Coaching is for the coachee. What do they want to work on?
Yeah, and I think to that point, you know, we're talking about it. My friends who are, you know, running these coaching companies often say that they're going back to moments of transition to get these seats used. It's like, okay, you've been promoted into this new role. Good time to offer you some coaching. You just had a less than stellar performance review. Let's introduce you to potential of coaching. You have been tapped as a high potential female leader. Let's introduce some coaching. And so I think a lot of times people don't understand or don't know or don't have the motivation, right? We're all busy and stuff. So tapping into that moment of transition is good. But what I would be excited about of everybody in our community is what you said. It really, I mean, it sounded like there's a lot of Excel spreadsheet work organizing, but everybody in this group says coaching is our number one thing. And by the way, we have zero money, zero budget, zero support.
Yeah, like
but this doesn't take a lot.
This is a low-cost solution.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like you do this one-time investment on creating your good coaching skills training, light touch, kind of basic stuff, you know. ChatGPT can do a lot for you these days, okay?
Sure can.
So, you know, you send out some communications. It doesn't take too, so I used to do the Excel thing, so it's a little bit like, you know, an hour and a half, but then I had these volunteers who just loved doing it and excelled at it and did it a lot better than me. So it's a bit of work to get it going, and then you set it up as light touch.
I love it. I love it. Lisa put a comment in that, which is, I think, true. It's sort of the sample selection issue. She's like, because they already worked at a company like Accenture, they understood the value. And, we probably did have a little bit of an advantage in that, knowledge workers and people who are eager to grow and learn. And not all companies, have that. Hopefully most do, but maybe not all have that.
Yeah, I think that's where maybe the themed things can come in. So in my experience, it doesn't really matter whether you're like a super senior leader in Accenture or you were an analyst. There were certain things that everybody was dealing with and everyone felt that they could be doing better at. So managing their focus and their time and their priorities and their energy and taking care of themselves. And so sometimes like theming around something like that into something that's very relatable.
Yeah.
And then, basically, we didn't do this because it was sort of, no one cared about us. We had no metrics. No one cared that we were doing this or not doing this. It was purely out of passion for our people, right? It was we believe in coaching, we're going to do this. But if you had a little bit more skin in the game, we would have done a much better job of telling the story of the impact of what we had done, and getting some people to highlight that, getting that story out, and then obviously senior leader sponsorship would be key.
Claire, in a minute we're going to jump to a networking thing. I'm just looking at the time, but before, and I'm hoping you can stick around, Claire, for that. But I want to ask Dwayne a question. Dwayne, Claire mentioned she doesn't have a lot of experience in terms of sales coaching, but what do you think? Wouldn't this idea of coaching circles among even like sales reps or sales managers where we're supporting each other, would it fit in a sales world?
I think it would. I think it works perfectly, actually, in this environment. I know my organization, we were kind of hindered with the financial thing. And because Grow Model is very simple, just a couple of those questions, empowering the people to actually reach out to the other leaders and do that, we saw some great impact. So yeah, I definitely do believe. And plus, outside of that, it just creates a healthier culture of just accountability, of creative thinking, and just so many other things. So I think there's a great opportunity to do it in a sales
I know, like you always ran a tight district and stuff, and people have field trainers and things. But to be able to get peer coaching like outside your district in other areas, or even across business units, like
huge.
Claire said, just that social support network and then exposure through an organization seems like a no-brainer.
I think the other thing that I think is not even the icing on the cake, but might actually be the cake, is that what you find, the dichotomy between internal and the field sales, is a lot of times they don't talk the same language, and they're unaware of the realities that they face. So there's restricted empathy there. So if you actually have this environment where you're peer coaching across these functions, all of a sudden you're welcomed in the world of what they see. Now, when I'm on calls and I'm building this out, or I'm doing strat pay and I'm pressure testing, I'm going to look at it a little differently now because I've taken a look in the world and they've welcomed me in. So I think that's also a powerful opportunity.
We would never match by function, right? So we could have been matching, this is our technology practice, we're just going to put all the technology people together. No, we would have the technology people, work with the strategy people, because that's there's a lot of benefits to that kind of cross-fertilization of ideas and the network, and just really understanding the complexity of the organization and other, because people are talking about real stuff. This is no role play. This is real play. They're talking about challenges that they have that they need to think through and work through. And so you're learning all the time as a coach.
Hey, I like
Claire,
that.
Sorry.
No, go, Dwayne.
Claire, did you see the overall appreciation for the organization of the people rise as well? Because as you're learning more about the organization, you're fascinated and you tend to have a deeper appreciation as well. I don't know exactly what I know you said you kind of did a
We
smile
never
sheet.
asked them that question.
Okay.
Do you love Accenture more now? Because we did have that as a theme, like about love and helping our employees love who they are and where they are and what we're doing.
Because you said strength finders, right? You talked about
They love
strength finders.
people. They love people. Like it's a magical program. Something magical happened every time. So it's a human program. You get it. I always used to say, you'll get out of this what you put into this, you know. It's really, really true. So I think that people had an appreciation for, like, and I'm going to say this is a very Accenture thing, but the one global network, like who we are. And like when people leave Accenture, you know, everybody says, oh, you know, I've done this great thing, but you know, the one thing I'm going to miss the people, because we really are we were a people business, right? It was all about relationships and people. So I think it dovetailed nicely into our culture around that.
That's amazing given the size of the organization. Yeah. On that note, because so Evan, in 30 seconds, I want you to send everyone into quick breakouts so we do get a chance to have a couple of side conversations, make friends. And again, it's your time. Use it as you'd like. If you need some starter things, I would say, you know, what's your number one takeaway from David's chat around sales leadership? How might it apply? How will you apply it? Maybe outside of sales leadership. And then what's your company doing around coaching or accountability buddies, anything even similar? Will you consider experimenting with this in the next year? What'd you take away from David? What'd you take away from Claire? And so Evan, let's send everyone away and we'll bring people back. If you come back after the break, we'll do our top 5 plays of the month and go out on a high note. See you in a minute. All right, welcome back. Everyone's coming back in. I hope you had a nice, quick breakout, saying hello. Let me shut off my music. And given we only have a few minutes left, I'm going to move quickly through just 5 things that kind of caught my eye. And feel free to chime in the chat or go out loud. This crossed my desk. It was in an email from Talent Edge Weekly. If you're not familiar with that, talentedgeweekly.com. And this is just sort of 10 questions to think about, sample questions as you're doing end of the year performance reviews, career conversations, and whether it's like, I want to think about goal alignment as I talk to my boss, or I am the boss, and I'm going to talk to my team members about their impact or about going above and beyond. We're going to send this out next week, but you can always take a screen capture if you're interested in these questions. And 4, if you're into the AI stuff, I really think we all need to be. This new report from PwC, World Economic Forum, so it's like heavyweights, talking about AI, and one takeaway was they've got these starting actions. Again, snap it or take a look when we send it to you. AI in L&D is going to be as important as it is anywhere else. If your department isn't thinking about it, executing on it, it's a good checklist to start with. 3, this caught my eye. I always like the Gallup stuff. So now their big paper here is the Great Detachment, why employees feel stuck. I think this is another rebranding of quiet quitting. People like the terms, but now if you're hearing Great Detachment take off, you know where it's coming from. But this is very interesting. So U.S. employees' connection between mission and purpose and their job, it was never great, and it tanked during the pandemic, and oddly has gotten lower. So people feel disconnected to the mission of their company. Record low. This is going back to my future casting idea. Like, we need a compelling, optimistic vision of the future. And anyone here of BANI, B-A-N-I? Drop it in the chat if you've heard, because this was new to me. We all know VUCA, and it's like, VUCA's so 1980s. Now we're all talking about BANI. The world is brittle. We're all anxious. The systems are nonlinear. It's become incomprehensible. We'll talk more about BANI later. I think, look, people like buzzwords and all that kind of stuff, but it is a little bit interesting, especially how brittle everything has become. And then finally, the fun one, just this week, OpenAI released Sora open to the public. So Sora.com, it's powered by the ChatGPT folks. You just type a sentence in and it will make you a video. So these are all AI videos that have been created through a sentence prompt. And just play around, watch the sample videos. It's pretty mind-blowing. Anything from cartoons to realistic to fantasy. People are now making, documentaries about caveman age because you can recreate it through AI instead of, trying to cast it. It's mindless. So it's open to the public, Sora.com. We are over and we all have to jet. So let me say this, Claire, so thank you for dropping that knowledge. We'll get you back in sharing more soon. And David took off already. Dwayne, thank you as always. Any final words of wisdom, Dwayne, before we let everybody go?
Yes, sir. As we conclude the year and we stumble up on the holidays, I challenge you all to be 10 toes. What do I mean by that? 10 toes. Make sure you have 10 toes in the moment. Be fully present with the people that mean a lot to you. It's time to be intentional with those that you love. So once again, be 10 toes.
Love it. Thank you, Dwayne. Enjoy the holidays, everyone. See you in the new year. Thank you.